In each of the first three problems on the quiz, we're trying to convert from degrees to radian measures. So if we're converting to radians, then we want pi on top and we want 180 degrees on the bottom. If we have degrees diagonal from each other, one on top and one on bottom, then they will cancel. Now when I go to the calculator to reduce this, then I only want to put in the number part of this because I want an integer or a fraction answer, meaning that I want to keep pi in the answer. So when I go to the calculator, I'm going to put 210 divided by 180, and I'll let the calculator simplify that for me. I get 7/6. Now I have to remember to put the pi back in there, so I get 7 pi over 6. Same thing on the second problem. The degrees are going to cancel. Put in your calculator 330 divided by 180, and then put the pi back in there. So we get 11 pi over 5. Same on the last example. Multiply by pi over 180. The degrees will cancel. Pi over 4. For the next three problems, we're converting from radian to degree measure. And since these are all special angles, we should be able to determine these without using a calculator. So let's do that first, and then we'll see what we get when we use the calculator. Remember, if I start at 0 and go to pi, then that semicircle right there represents those angles. Okay, so if I split that pi in two, I split it in half, then this is going to be a pi over 2 angle right here. So each quadrant is a pi over 2, which is the same thing as 90 degrees. If I count 3 pi over 2, then this would be 1 pi over 2. This would be 2 pi over 2, which reduces to pi. And down here would be 3 pi over 2. So in degrees, we know that's 270 degrees. Now, the other thing that you can do is to just multiply by 180 over pi. Your pi's will cancel right here, and then the 2 reduces with the 180 and leaves 90, and 3 times 90 is 270 degrees. Pi over 2, it's pretty easy to see that's 90 degrees, but you could multiply by 180 over pi. The pi's would reduce. 180 divided by 2 is 90. When you have a negative angle, remember that gives you direction. So I have an angle of pi over 2, which is the same as 90 degrees. If this angle is negative, then when I change this to degrees, it's still going to be negative. If you give me 270 or negative 270, which is a couple of the answers that I got a lot, then you're given an angle that's, well, 270 is coterminal with negative 90. So it would have the same values, but the same trig values, but it's not exactly the same angle. On the next two problems, we start with radian measure that don't have pi written out separately. So this time, it's not something we can find easily on our unit circle, no special values. So we just want to multiply by 180 degrees divided by pi. This time, all I can do is use the pi button that's in my calculator to compute this. So 2.84 times 180 divided by pi. Notice when you do that in the calculator, you get 162.72, but our answer needs to be in degrees and minutes. We want to round to the nearest minute. So here we want to go to the catalog. Make sure you're on the first tab. We can press the letter D for DMS, and then scroll down. If you get an answer that's really wild like this, that means your calculator is in radian mode. So we need to, if you hover over the settings, you can see you're in radian mode. So we need to change that setting. One thing that you can do is click on that settings button, go to document settings here, and change this to degree. Now I can arrow up and select that number. And then go back and try the DMS conversion again. Now you can see that we have 162 degrees, 43 minutes, and then 12 something seconds. So this is going to round to 162 degrees, 43 minutes. And the next problem is worked in a very similar way. So I'm going to multiply by 180 divided by pi. I'm going to take that to the calculator. I get decimal degrees here, so I go and do the conversion to DMS. And I get negative 110 degrees and 28 minutes, 23 seconds. It's going to round down. You would round up if your seconds was 30 or bigger. Again, notice that since we're only converting, we're not trying to find a coterminal angle. If the angle that they give us is negative, then the angle that we give in degree measure must also be negative. For the next two problems, notice that you're not just given an angle, but you're trying to evaluate a trig function with an angle for the argument. So I need to get a number value for this. You've done this before when you found cosine 60 degrees using the hand trick. It's important that you learn to work with radians and not always be converting, especially when your angles get larger like this. Remember on your hand trick, this is 0 radians, this is pi over 6, this is pi over 4, this is pi over 3, and this is pi over 2 on the thumb. Since we want the pi over 3 angle, then we're going to fold in this finger here, and cosine is on the top, so I'm going to have the square root of 1 and then divided by 2. Square root of 1 divided by 2 is not simplified. To simplify, you actually take the square root of 1 and get 1, and that's 1/2. Pi over 3 is in quadrant 1, so we know we're going to have a positive value right here, and that's your answer. Now, if we look at cosine negative 5 pi over 6, we can tell right off the bat that our reference angle is pi over 6, so that's the finger that we're going to use. And we can go ahead and get the value for this and then decide if that value is going to be positive or negative. So if I fold in my pi over 6 angle, and I'm looking for cosine, which is on top, so I get the square root of 3 fingers divided by 2, and that's going to be the value. To determine if it's positive or negative, I need to know what quadrant this is in. So let's take our 0 to pi, and we're rotating in the negative direction. If we go all the way to pi, and this is divided into 6 pieces, then that's going to be a 6 pi over 6. I want to back up a pi over 6 so that that reference angle right there is pi over 6. So this is going to be negative 5 pi over 6 right here. That means we're in quadrant 3, and the cosine is negative in that quadrant. Another way that you can count this is to actually divide that pi into 6 pieces. So if I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then when I get to negative 5 pi over 6, then I would be in that same location. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to come talk to me about them, because these skills are very important for the rest of the semester.